In the stone jungle, as always, the sun was not visible, which was obscured from people by skyscrapers. In one of these buildings, a medium-sized office was holding a job interview. The local workers didn't know who the woman sitting behind the desk was, but one of them suddenly recognized her. It was Xiao Hei's girlfriend. It seems today she came here to dump her boyfriend. Did she decide to break up with him right in the office? Wild woman? The local beauty whispered in exasperation. Meanwhile, a very unpleasant conversation was going on behind the glass. I'll keep it short. I can't live with a miserable man like you anymore. The hero looked confused. He wanted an explanation for such cruel words of his girlfriend. The latter shouted that his pathetic appearance disgusted her. This phrase literally shocked the guy. To hear such a thing from the object of one's crush is really very painful. Then I decided to give you a chance because I saw the potential of your cultivation. Even though you didn't enter the cultivation university, at least you were the last descendant of the fading spellcaster clan. But do the math. How many months have we been together? And your pathetic bloodline is still sleeping the dead sleep. The beauty angrily blurted out. She felt that the young man had wasted 3 months of her youth. She had let so many immortal descendants pass through him. Xiaofei bewilderedly muttered, even if I spent all my savings on spiritual stones for you, all sorts of spiritual energy jewels. The enraged beauty slapped her hand on the table. How dare he even stutter about that? That trash you gave me. The spiritual energy in it was so weak that it was barely perceptible. Look at the earrings young Master Bai gave me. They are simply overflowing with spiritual energy that can ward off evil, protect the body, and even enhance beauty. Suddenly, a noise was heard behind the glass of the office. Someone squeezed the computer mouse so hard that it shattered into splinters. Xiao's now ex-girlfriend was also distracted from her angry tirade. The office worker who was watching this scene could no longer sit still. The girl exclaimed, "You have overstepped any boundaries." Her friend tried to calm her down, asking her to stay out of other people's business. They have enough official duties. Suddenly, a voice was heard. "Don't get me wrong, I meant—" The girl looked angrily at her already ex-boyfriend. He asked her to return everything he had ever given her. This request threw the beauty completely off balance. She was literally trembling with anger. "Hey Shin, I curse you to be a loser all your life and die a horrible death," the girl exclaimed. The young man in turn was completely unfazed. "If it's inconvenient to bring, you can mail everything to me." But his ex already ran out the door, shouting one last time, "Think about it. I'd rather throw it all away than return it to you." The hero shouted back that he wished he knew the location, because it would be a pity if everything just went to waste. The girl, who continued to closely follow the events, told her friend that this guy is quite interesting, but the latter advised her to attend to her work duties, otherwise the manager might appear out of nowhere. Just as she said those words, her friend saw a shadow in front of her that blocked her light. It was the manager of the cultivation department, Zhang Jiqian. He asked the girl if she had fulfilled this month's KPI. Suddenly, the manager's attention was caught by Xiaofei. He shouted, "Am I paying you to come here to sleep?" He was just dumped by his girlfriend. He's a bit upset right now. He'll come to his senses soon. His co-worker stood up for the guy. Zhang didn't reply anything, only glanced in the direction of the pretty girl. A little later, during a break, Xiaofeng, hoping to be alone, climbed out onto the roof of the office building. Suddenly, the hero was taken aback when he heard, "Didn't you eat on your lunch break?" Approaching the young man was manager Zhang himself. The man was smiling amiably, holding a bag of lunch in his hand. Jiqian offered Xiao a drink to relax. In the young man's mind, the manager usually looks at me with a look that can sizzle. Why is he suddenly so kind today? A little while later, when the can of Coca-Cola was finished, it flew to the floor. The hero jumped to his feet. He clearly needed to vent. "She ate my food and drank my drinks. Spent all my money and cheated on me all the time. Let her die." After this emotional tirade, Xiaofei immediately felt better. He didn't expect that the usually so cold manager actually cared so much about his subordinates. Suddenly, the hero felt dizzy and everything in front of his eyes swam. The young man began to lose his balance. At the last moment, he realized there was something in the Coca-Cola. A devilish smile appeared on Zhang Jiqian's face, his eyes burning with red fire. In the next moment, Xiao fell at the manager's feet. The latter was satisfied with his work. When consciousness later returned to the hero, he saw that he was standing shackled on the edge of a cliff. The young man heard footsteps behind his back. A familiar voice said, "At last you have come to your senses." Fei looked back and saw the manager. He was approaching confidently, putting his hands in his pockets. The hero said that it was some kind of misunderstanding, but Zhang replied that there was no mistake. Xiao was the one he was looking for. Fei gritted through his teeth. I'm not into entertainment like S&M, and I'm not interested in men. Such mockery on the boy's part infuriated the manager. He could not hold back his own emotions and hit the helpless hero in the face with his fist. Do you think this is funny? Don't you realize the situation you're in? Look down carefully, Zhang Zhijin exclaimed, grabbing the guy by the hair. Xiao lowered his gaze into the abyss and saw red eyes that were rapidly approaching. That gaze was blazing with fire. There was something mystical about it. Another moment, and the hero saw the owner of the falling eyes. It was a giant dragon, the manager exclaimed, addressing the serpent. Divine Dragon Lord, we have made a sacrifice. Although this lowlife hasn't awakened, he still has the spiritual root of the ancient race in his body. It will surely be much tastier than the sheep and pigs we brought before. The dragon held out some kind of pill to Zhang and said in a scary voice, This is the true condensation pill I promised you. The manager was pleased with the size of this pill. He was sure that he would definitely make a major breakthrough this time. The man returned and left, wanting to start cultivating as soon as possible. The dragon asked if his victim had any last words before he died. Xiaofei didn't look scared. He narrowed his eyes and looked directly at the beast. The young man boldly said, Your mouth stinks. Perhaps you should brush your teeth before dinner. The dragon responded angrily, calling the hero an insolent man. He called himself the Lord of the Clouds, the ruler of the 9 heavens, the bearer of thunder and rain, who rides the 4 seas. For 3,000 years he silently cultivated the abysses. 80,000 years wandering the 9 heavens. The next moment, he fell silent and thought about his tirade. He realized that he had lost his temper. How could he get angry over a mere mortal? The next moment, the hero's shackles shattered into splinters, and he was pulled upwards into the dragon's jaws with the help of magic. Normally, I swallow people in one fell swoop, but today I will give you the special honor of tearing you to pieces and savoring you slowly, starting at the feet. The ancient serpent spoke with a smile. Xiao shouted that it couldn't be done, but the dragon thought it was too late to beg for the position. The guy said he had a fungus on his feet, and it would make the dragon's mouth stink even more. When he is in the snake's mouth, he will inhale the smell of his stinky feet and the dragon's fresh breath at the same time. That smell would be like waking up in the morning, not brushing your teeth and eating your ex's stinky socks. The dragon couldn't listen to any more of this chatter. He shouted, ordering the young man to shut up. The beast clenched its sharp teeth on Fei's legs. Blood flew in different directions. The hero was in unbearable pain, barely restraining himself from screaming. The guy's fingers curled in pain, but suddenly some symbol appeared on the outside of his palm. The forbidden bloodline technique was activated at the moment of danger. The light of life and death put a death mark on the enemy that kills the owner of the technique. The mark of life he puts on himself. From then on, the enemy will suffer the same pain and take the same damage as you until you die from this curse. Once the double angulation is used, the bodies under the curse of life and death will die together. Without the intervention of a top-level immortal magic, neither party will have a chance to be revived. This spell cannot be blocked or broken from the outside. Suddenly, the young man heard, Student He Xin, what kind of nonsense are you talking about? The hero realized that he was in the classroom. All of his classmates and the professor were keeping their perplexed gazes on him. I told you to read the 7 arts of body tempering. What does life and curse have to do with it? Did you take too much body-hardening medicine and start raving? The teacher angrily asked. The hero was silent. He could hear his classmates laughing at him. Meanwhile, there was a conversation somewhere in the teacher's lounge. Professor Yin, I heard that a new kid transferred to your class? The man confirmed it. The woman continued. To get into your advanced class, his talent must be impressive. Otherwise, with your requirements for applicants, you wouldn't even look at an ordinary person. Teacher Yin opened his desk drawer and looked in there with a smile. He then said to his colleague, This guy has other talents. The professor thought to himself that in any case, he wouldn't even last until the first monthly exam. The man thought it would be foolish not to take advantage of such a bonus. There were stacks of money in his desk drawer. Meanwhile, in the auditorium, one of the students exclaimed, Professor, with such a talent, he's completely useless even if he eats himself to death with pills. At this moment, Xiaofei was thinking, What talent do I need to cultivate? He was tired of listening to this bullying. After that dragon killed him, the hero came to his senses in his own bed. The spiritual root that had been sleeping for 20 years suddenly woke up. The young man remembered his ex's words. You may not have gotten into a decent cultivation university, but at least you're the last descendant of the fading spellcaster clan. Xiao caught himself thinking. Why was he constantly thinking about that woman's words? It wasn't like he had ponied up 50,000 to the class principal to transfer right now, just because he harbored resentment at her words. The hero was so immersed in his own thoughts that he flinched when he saw someone's foot on his desk. Newcomer, let me familiarize you with the rules of this class. Every week, you owe me at least 1 bottle of body hardening pill, 1 bottle of Pei Yuan pill, and 1 dose of Gubin potion. Everything must be of the best quality, said the local brigand. The other children noticed that their classmate, named Zhang Jibai, was once again educating a newcomer. It would be an interesting performance. Why is it that I'm the one who has to give all this to you? And why are you standing on my desk? Xiaofei wasn't scared at all. Nahal believed that this was his territory, so he could stand wherever he wanted. He angrily added that he usually jumped from the window while the weaklings used the ladder. Taking a step onto the windowsill, Zhang added, "If you don't bring the goods by the end of class this Friday, I'll tie you to a lamppost in front of the school. Let the other students have some fun." The brigand took a step forward into the void. Xiao kept his gaze on the brazen man's foot that was still on the windowsill. Suddenly, the hero's eyes turned red like that dragon from his past life. Without hesitating for long, the young man struck that leg with the edge of his palm. Zhang Jibai lost his balance and tumbled out of the window, screaming throughout the courtyard. The young man landed unsuccessfully, his head hitting the ground. The other students who saw the landing were amazed. He just flew face first into the ground. Zhang must be practicing the old steel-tempered technique. He wouldn't die from such a fall. The children did not really sing the guy. One of them said, "If he died, I'd go up 1 step in the class ranking." The young man really wasn't very hurt. After a moment, he rose to his feet and shouted, addressing Xiao, "What the hell? Don't go out after class, I'll break your legs." One of the green-haired classmates looked back to the newcomer and warned him, "You're screwed. This Zhang Jibai is a famous class thug. No one has ever defeated him before. His family is a powerful and influential academic cultivator clan in this place, and his body-hardening technique has reached an incredible level. The last disciple who got in his way, the rascal had brought his entire family to the point of ruin or death." The young man added in a friendly manner that it was best to avoid Guji Alley after lessons in the newcomer, which was just on the path on the way home. It was usually where Zhang's gang would ambush him. After class, when the hero was on his way home, he saw a familiar alleyway. Meanwhile, the villain's comrades were already there. One of them asked the boss, "Do the 3 of us have to deal with some new guy?" Another answered for the chairman, "What do you know?" This trash is no different from an ordinary person. The boss could crush it with 1 hand, but it would be too humiliating for him. We have to deal with it. Chang thought that this little scumbag was probably trembling with fear and thinking of ways to get around this alley. But it didn't matter, because the boss had people everywhere. He can't escape. One of the henchmen supported the boss in every possible way. He thought the boss had thought of everything. Suddenly, everyone present heard a voice. "Who said I'm going to hide?" Xiaofei boldly walked down the dark alleyway straight into the hands of danger. The scum didn't expect the hero himself to come straight into their trap. One of them said, "You realize that you won't escape anyway, so you decided to meekly accept death, didn't you?" Zhang Jibai's mind flashed. This young man doesn't look scared at all. What is he up to? Perhaps he's one of those rare types that hide their true strength and pretend to be weak to strike a sudden blow. Xiaofei's eyes burned red. He spoke in a calm tone. "What a bunch of weaklings you are. Are you really afraid to clamp down on someone at the school gate? Instead, you chose some alleyway so far away to ambush someone here. I worked so hard to get here. Come on, hit me." One of the rascals could not stand this provocation and rushed at the young man with his fists. Jumping up, the scoundrel kicked the hero in the stomach. Xiao flew back. The blow was so strong that he smashed his own back on the asphalt. The bandits scoffed. They had expected something more from such an arrogant rookie. Zhang Jibai thought that he had managed to navigate all sorts of things for nothing. This is really an ordinary guy. That was a 5th-level body-hardening strike. Your internal organs must have turned to mush. You won't live long, said the one who attacked first. Lying in a pool of blood, Xiaofei muttered, "I'm not hurt at all. This is what you call 5th-level body hardening? Weak and soft like some loser." This guy's words almost drove the bandit crazy. his eyes filled with blood. He exclaimed in rage, "Can't wait till you stop breathing!" He jumped up, intending to finish the insolent man right away. Suddenly, the bastard's foot disappeared, leaving a trail of blood. Red spatters flew in different directions, splattering the rest of the gang. The young man cried out in pain and fell to the ground. Xiao continued to lie on the ground. He said, "Now you are truly legless." Suddenly, as if out of nowhere, a blonde woman appeared in the middle of a dark alley. Looking at the hero, she said that she had finally found him. Zhang Jibai and his henchmen were dumbfounded by the appearance of the stranger. The gang leader looked confused. In a moment, that woman seemed to materialize out of thin air. The boss's henchman raised his magic sword to strike, intending to attack the stranger from the back. Zhang Jibai saw everything. He shouted, "Hey! Don't use the deadly technique here. You might destroy everything around you." The next moment, there was an explosion. Possible casualties from the purple golden stick. This idiot destroyed all the surrounding houses. The boss thought about the fact that when the time came, the old man would give him a whipping for the consequences. When the smoke cleared, Zhang saw two shadows, a member of his gang with a sword in his hands and a strange girl. The bandit's sword stopped near the stranger's head. Jibai was stunned by what he saw, his mouth open, sweat dripping down his face. Now it was clear why the young man froze. The woman stopped his weapon with a single glance. It's worth running back a bit to tell you who this supergirl was. Somewhere on a flying island, under a large tree, two people were sitting at a table. A girl we already know and a crane. They were playing a board game with white and black chips. The crane was playing with black. He asked his rival, "Lady Divine Dragon, why do you always appear in human form? Who needs those stupid immortal palace rules that require one to appear in their real guise anyway? Then it turns out to be like yours. A human body with a bird's head on it," the girl replied. Crane didn't have anything to say to these words. Mistress Dragon noticed the strange behavior of her comrade and wondered if he was offended, but he pointed his finger at her and explained that the woman was bleeding. The beauty did not believe it. She thought he was joking, because the last time she bled 100 years ago. Her invincible body has heavenly protection. But the very next moment, the dragon lady herself was convinced of the truth of the crane's words. Blood was gushing from her neck. The girl promptly used the blood-stopping technique. In the next instant, she flew into the air, apologizing to Brother Crane. The half-human, half-bird shouted after her, "If you go to the lower world, don't forget to report to the Immortal Palace." Meanwhile, the dragon mistress in human form was rapidly approaching Earth. She scanned the symbol that appeared on her hand with divine consciousness. It is a deadly curse, and even her powers are not enough to break it. The curse of life is on someone in the human world. Dragon Mistress must find the scum who placed the death curse on her. Flying to Earth in a matter of minutes, the beauty immediately sensed where she needed to go. The alley was in a sector of defense with magical symbols. The other side of reality could not be seen by everyone. The Dragon Lady had protected all the surrounding houses from the destruction they could experience from the sword of a single goon. At the epicenter of events, two of the participants were lying on the ground, while the third was frozen in place with a sword in his hands. Zhang Chibai's mind flashed. Withstood a master's death blow at the true condensation level and didn't even move. At the moment of impact, she still created a protective barrier, so all the buildings around her remained unharmed. This person's cultivation level is far above mine. The Dragon Lady replied that it had been too long since she had fought low-level cultivators, and had managed to forget how weak they were. Hearing these words, the boss shouted for his minion to run away quickly. But it was too late. One glance from the heavenly dragon was enough for the upper half of the scum's body to flutter away as if it was not even there. Zhang's eyes went to his forehead. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. Why didn't he even see the woman throw a punch, and that guy was already blown into small pieces? The boss thought that now it would be his turn, and it would be the end. His legs wouldn't listen to him. Xiao watched the scene with a smile. Dragon Lady stretched her arms and surprisingly spoke out. "To tell you the truth, I'm a little surprised to see the person I ate rise from the dead. The effect of your cursed seal is just to suckle on me and drink blood? Take it off at once, or you'll regret it." Meanwhile, the hero thought, "So it's really you. You've changed your appearance so much that I barely guessed it was that stinking dragon." Faye smiled again and honestly admitted that he really didn't know how to break that curse. This was not at all how Madame Dragon wanted to hear. She grabbed Xiao Feng's legs and swung him around. In the next instant, she slammed the young man against the pavement with all her might. The woman demanded that the young man break the curse now as she continued to beat him against the ground. Zhang was terrified by this sight. Suddenly, the dragoness realized that the injuries appearing on this guy's body were duplicated on her as well. Blood spurted from the dragon lady's mouth onto the wall. What the hell? The harder I hit him, the heavier my wounds get. If I keep hitting this bastard, it's going to turn into an endless cycle. The celestial woman muttered confusedly. The woman decided it was better to try to make some inquiries first. In her world, she could definitely find a way to get rid of it. Meanwhile, despite the terrible wounds, Xiao was on his feet again. Damn it, he's come to life again. It's the effect of the seal, ran through the dragon's mind. Last time, you just ate me like that. It would be quite fair for me to demand compensation from you, wouldn't it? The young man brazenly inquired. The dragon lady said confusedly that he was the first person who dared to speak to her like that. The woman wanted to know what exactly he wanted. Xiao Fei replied that he dreamed of becoming an immortal. The goddess shouted angrily, her eyes turning red. What did he make up for himself? Did he find a genie or something? After calming down a bit, the dragon lady inquired what would happen if she refused. If you don't give me immortality, I will drown myself in a pool of sulfuric acid and die over and over again. And you will lose your life force along with me, threatened the hero. The woman couldn't believe her own ears as this mortal ambassador blackmailed her. She could immobilize him and lock him in a cell, then find a way to break the curse. There would definitely be plenty of time. The guy replied, "Does she really think he doesn't have a trump card for such an eventuality? Let him check it out." These insolent words of the mortal made the divine dragon even more angry. But the power of the curse did not sleep. It showed the woman its capabilities. Lady Dragon had not expected to see anything like this. Only now did she believe that it was really serious. The beauty changed her mind, and already leaving away from here threw some book into the guy's hands. It is impossible to become immortal in one step. Here, take this basic treatise. You can practice a little at a time. It's perfect for a clueless person like you. Although it won't make you immortal, it will guarantee you admission to a good university and a trouble-free life. The ancient folio was called Precious Technique Treatise. The name of this technique alone sounded incredibly cool. Indeed, simply taking blows would not defeat the enemy. Raising one's own cultivation level was the surest way. Meanwhile, Madame Dragon slyly thought, "What a jerk. Nothing comes for free. I'll get rid of you soon." But before that, she wished to get all the benefit she could from this fool. At this time, Zhang Jibai was trying to blend in with the wall, pretending that he wasn't here. Suddenly, the bandit felt the dragon's gaze on him. Was it really his turn? The red-eyed beauty read his mind and said, "I don't crush bugs that crawl under my feet, but you'll have to forget about what happened today." She reached forward and snapped 2 fingers. Zhang wasn't in a state to think right now. He screamed that he didn't want to die. The next moment, the frightened young man heard the voice of a teacher calling his name. The body-tempering professor Yinjian spoke. "Going crazy in the exam is forbidden. Please be a little more restrained." Zhang's head was splitting. He couldn't remember what had happened yesterday. His head was a mess. He couldn't remember what he was supposed to do today at all. The professor had suggested that today was the first monthly exam of the new semester. The man hoped that all the students would give their best. Those who would end up at the bottom of the rankings could have the school recommend expulsion. The first stage of the exam was a test of body hardening level. The professor announced the beginning of the exam. Xiao Feng was also here. He exclaimed, "What the hell? An exam in the first week after enrollment? Nothing has been explained in class these days." The green-haired classmate replied that this was how it was supposed to be in the graduating class. Everything that was needed was told for the past 2 years. "And anyway, don't you take any extra classes?" he inquired. The hero looked confused. It was the first time he had heard information about extra classes. Of course, all efforts are made after classes. In senior year, you only come to school to take exams, compete in rankings, and charge to the fullest, added a classmate. He was amazed that the newcomer had not enrolled in the course and was sure that in that case he was unlikely to be lucky in this exam. And the young man turned to the fat man and said that his last place, which the boy had occupied for 3 years in a row, would soon come to an end because the newcomer, who had just transferred, had not even enrolled in the course. Everyone in the crowd laughed, expecting Xiao Feng to be defeated. But seriously, I've racked my brain, but I still haven't figured out how that cruel in nature class storm, Zhang Jibai, let you go? The green-haired man already asked in a serious tone. Meanwhile, the bandit looked at the newcomer and remembered that he had feuded with him. But he couldn't remember why he had let him go. The two henchmen who usually followed him. One was blown to pieces by someone, the other died from blood loss. Zhang constantly felt like something terrible had happened, but he couldn't remember what it was. Meanwhile, the teacher announced the first test called punching power. A barrier was set up on the playground, time to test the student's punching power. The professor wanted student Zhang Jibai to be the first to demonstrate his capabilities. The man considered this guy to be the most capable student. He hoped that Zhang would show real skill now. The young man swung around and threw his spear straight into the barrier. It was a powerful blow, and Jibai's sharp spear pierced the barriers one by one. The teacher was ready to announce the result. 5-meter-thick reinforced concrete walls. The man thought that this was worthy for the best body-hardening student in their school. This level was close to his own. Zhang himself was satisfied with his own result. He felt that he had worried for nothing. He really had an outstanding talent. The cheerleaders chanted his name in a friendly manner. The green-haired man told Xiao that he was very jealous of this result. This Zhang is an accepted top candidate in their class, who will most likely enter Heju Cultivation University without exams, just by hardening his body. This test helps to gauge one's inner explosive, destructive power. No matter what the student uses, body hardening technique or QI, the score is still calculated by the number of walls broken through. Most people only break through 2 or 3 walls in the first month of their senior year, so Zhang's score is first place by a huge margin. Next to take this test, the teacher called Fatty Wu Fei to take the test. The guy swung around and took a step forward, throwing the cannonball towards the reinforced concrete barriers. The cannonball hit the target but got stuck in the first wall. It was unclear if that was it, or if the force of the blow would be enough to penetrate at least that wall through. The fat man clenched his fists. He hoped that the cannonball would penetrate this barrier. It seems God heard Wu Fei's prayer. The cannonball still fell out from the other side of the wall. The young man was jumping with happiness. He couldn't believe that he had passed the exam. Now it was the newcomer's turn. The teacher thought, "Class director, this old man must be out of his mind if he accepted such trash. This Xiao will pull their class to the bottom. Let him watch me expel him today." The green-haired man patted the hero's shoulder and said that he was out of luck. If the young man didn't break through any walls, he would be the one recommended for expulsion. Most likely, this was their last conversation. The classmate sincerely wished Fairy good luck. But the fellow had no intention of losing. He activated his mana. Shafi had managed to advance a technique called the Black Thunder Hell Palm. The teacher couldn't believe his own eyes. Why did this young man come out empty-handed? Did he decide to make a core out of thin air? The man sarcastically said, "Is there a genius in their class who can create things out of nothing?" The classmates laughed at the professor's words. Zhang exclaimed, "With such a hidden genius, teacher, your title of head teacher is assured." Everyone laughed again. Before he could even finish his sentence, he saw a cannonball in the newcomer's hand, which actually appeared as if out of thin air. The hero also took a step forward and swung, taking good aim. The core was enveloped in red-black fire energy. Taking a good swing, the hero hurled the cannonball straight at the target. It flew with incredible force and speed. One by one, the hero's core easily broke through all the stone barriers in its path. The teacher's eyes went to the forehead. Because the newcomer's core easily broke through all the fortified barriers, can he really break through the outer fence of the school? But the hero's weapon stopped, breaking through the last reinforced concrete wall. The teacher wiped the sweat from his forehead. Fortunately, the power of the newcomer's core strike had already ended. Even so, this result broke the record of all previous graduates. And that Thunder Palm, this was the first time the man had seen it in this form. Judging from the explosive power with which he hurled the cannonball, his level of body hardening is also probably not low. To develop body tempering and qui tempering to this level, this guy is incredible. Ran through the teacher's mind. In the crowd of classmates, they said that this guy seemed so ordinary before, but now his awesomeness was off the charts. This kind of talent would not yield to the so-called geniuses of yesteryear. The young man used to keep a low profile before, but now it's clear. He's definitely a direct descendant from some great sect. Fatty Wu tearfully thought that he was stuck in last place for a long time, while the green-haired man frightenedly thought that he had mocked him for nothing back then. A little later, when Xiaofei approached him, the young man looked horrified. "What the hell? What's wrong with you? You look like you've aged 50 years. the hero asked the green-haired man. The one mumbled that he was blind this afternoon. He added if Zhao needed help in the future, just let him speak up. The hero replied that they'd better talk about it later, as he was in a hurry. The next moment, the young man was gone, moving at an incredible speed. The classmate was surprised that he was in such a hurry to get back to training. Outstanding people try much harder than him. Feng quickly moved forward along the dark street. The thoughts in his head were, what the hell is his problem? I know this dragon mortal had bad intentions. Slipped me that secret trashy book with this. Now he must pay the debt for the black thunder palm of hell with practice. If he fails to meet the deadline, he receives a punishment. A decrease in cultivation level and a weakening of the effect of the seal associated with the bloodline. When night fell on the city, the young man was finally home. The hero was going through all his books in search of a certain treatise. He had once purchased it over the internet, didn't understand anything, and immediately flipped to the last pages. He remembered only one thing, how to activate the technique. Shu clutched his head. He didn't remember what the initial practices were. If he ordered this edition online now, it would most likely be delivered tomorrow morning. Then he would definitely not meet the deadline. Suddenly, the hero had an idea. This book can be searched for in electronic form. The next moment from his room heard shouting, "So expensive!" The neighbors were unhappy that someone was shouting in the middle of the night and keeping people awake, because they had to get up early for cultivation. The hero was amazed at the cost of this book. Last time a few tens of thousands of yuan had almost emptied his pockets, and now these hours had skyrocketed. Xiao only had 8 hours and 31 minutes left before the deadline. Time is going fast. If he doesn't buy now, the whole night might not be enough time to practice. But the young man just gave 50,000 to this class director. He's already almost out of money. After paying 200,000 yuan for the book, the guy's account balance was left with 3,372. With just over 6 hours left on the timer, Xiaofei took up breathing practices. 3 hours and 44 minutes was the spiritual energy management exercise. 1 hour and 5 minutes was the time to practice strength techniques. The hero didn't stop for a minute. He honed his own skill over and over again. He was hurling energy cores at everything in the vicinity. When half an hour remained before the deadline, the system congratulated the young man that the practice process was complete. He had made it in time. But the very next moment the hero was knocked down by something, he fell to the ground face down. At this moment, the island somewhere in the middle of the sky was also awake. In a solitary house in the middle of the forest, several windows were glowing. In the bathroom, it was hard to see anything because of the steam. The dragon lady enjoyed the hot water, cleansing not only her body but also her own thoughts. There was no way she expected that in the next moment blood would spurt from her body. The beauty screamed angrily, for the rejuvenating immortal dew water she had just created had been tainted. Running her hand over the water, she saw Xiao, who was lying motionless on the ground. The dragon mistress immediately realized that this unfortunate person had overdone it during practice and died suddenly. The dragon mistress called the young man a complete lowlife. She had placed a small restriction on him during the practice replenishment process, and he had already failed. The woman reached forward, pointing her hand through space directly at the hero. A week ago, the first day of senior year, a trio stood at the rating board. One young man said, "Boss, you ranked in the top 10 on the placement test." Zhang Zhibai was ranked 10th in the local ranking. The young man smiled widely and said, "With my body hardening alone, I can enter the top 10 of the elite class." The so-called geniuses of this class are only at this level. The girl who was standing next to the guys suddenly shouted. She had seen something important. The classmate pointed her finger at the ranking. It turns out Fatty Wu isn't in last place. The 43rd place in the class ranking was Hei Xin. Unfamiliar trash. It must be the new kid. It's time to set up a test of strength again, Zhang Jibang muttered with a nasty smile. Looking at the ranking after a week, there was no longer a smile on the guy's face. The rookie had only risen in the overall ranking by 10 months, just because of the past one test. At this moment, the boss was called over, informing him that the second test was about to begin. All the students had already gathered in the auditorium, waiting for the test to begin. The one who had taken this exam first was trembling with dread. This time, the students had to overcome the opponent in hand-to-hand combat. The first one couldn't stay on his feet and tumbled to the ground. The end of the fight was sad. The teacher ordered to carry the boy to the medical office. Dr. Sun, with his wonderful hands, would still be able to save him. The hero asked his new comrade what the test was. He explained, It's a test of palm strength and stamina. Compared to the pass punching test, this one is Zhang Jibai's crown technique. The special crown technique of 100 times hardening steel. It's said that none of his peers can pierce through his defense. The boss turned to his new opponent. I heard you have the strongest palm among your peers? Today, you will prove that my hundredfold hardening has become stronger. The young man named Zhao Ying was about to make Jibai pay for his arrogance. He used the forged steel palm technique. With a good swing, he unleashed a strike of such strength that it was simply impossible to stand still. The two opponents disappeared for a moment from the sight of their classmates who were watching the fight closely. Zhao Ying, who was about to celebrate his victory, said, "What's a hundredfold steel tempering?" Just the name alone. But in the next moment, the self-confident young man's eyes went wide. Through the dust that rose from the impact, he saw red eyes and a dark silhouette. When everything cleared, the young man saw that Zhang was still standing firmly on his feet. The boss, with a bloody mark on his cheek, exclaimed, "What kind of fool is this forged steel palm of yours?" Without waiting, he threw a lightning-fast punch at Zhao. It was so strong that the young man immediately flew to the ground. The next moment, the teacher ordered the young man to be taken to the infirmary as well. The man was about to call the next pair when suddenly Jibai stopped him. He wanted the one called He Xin to come out. Meanwhile, Zhao continued to question the green-haired man on the topic of discovered and patented techniques. The young man confirmed that the techniques were basically divided into these two types. This information was commonly known. He surprisingly asked where Fei went to school in 10th and 11th grade. The one replied, "In the third city school." A classmate thought that ordinary high school was not for cultivators. No wonder he had such gaps in his knowledge. Generally speaking, open techniques are something that has long been publicly available. They can be practiced by anyone. And patented techniques are those that have been applied for at the patent office for cultivators. They can only be practiced by patent holders and those who have been authorized. People without permission, practicing such techniques unauthorizedly, will be prosecuted up to and including prosecution and the destruction of the entire clan. The green-haired man explained. He continued, like those two who just fought. The forged steel palm is an open palm, and the hundredfold steel tempering is patented. It's not easy for an ordinary cultivator to master a patented technique because their threshold of entry and difficulty of practice are very high. Meanwhile, the teacher was fixing the floor of the gymnasium with the help of the initial repair spell. When the repair was done, he looked at the newcomer and summoned him. The two opponents came face to face, just a moment more, and their testing would begin. What's the matter? Every time I see this guy, my soul sinks into my heels. Although I only lost to him in one test. Zhang Jibai noted the unpleasant fact. The guy's hand was trembling. If he overcame this He Xin today, he would be able to firmly strengthen his own position. The hero suggested that they should not just exchange blows one by one, he wanted to punch each other in the face at the same time. These words of the young man made Zhang angry. He advised the newcomer not to be so arrogant. At this time, Xiao managed to advance the palm of forged steel. Is he going to exchange blows with me using this open technique? The boss thought happily. But that wasn't the case. The hero had managed to advance the hundredfold steel hardening palm technique. The teacher held his breath as he watched the two strongest students in his class. The boys actually slapped each other's cheeks at the same time. No matter how strong Zhang was, he couldn't stay on his feet from He Xin's punch. The punch was so powerful that Jibai, despite his not small weight, flew across the entire gymnasium. The class thunderstorm landed on the floor, face down. He lay there and didn't move. The spectators were stunned. They sat with bulging eyes and open mouths. Yeah, I wasn't wrong. His initial stance is indeed an open palm of forged steel stance, but the moment he hit Zhang Jibai, he applied the hundredfold tempered steel technique on top of the first one. Teacher thought in astonishment. And it wasn't even because the Zhang clan's patented hundredfold steel tempering technique has a very high threshold of entry and difficulty. Wasn't he afraid of the disaster that secretly practicing the patented technique might bring? Xiao asked the teacher if Zhang should be taken to the medical room, because he seems to be stuck to the wall and can't get off. The teacher was so immersed in his own thoughts that he did not react to the hero's question. The man painted a pleasant smile on his face, like that sly fox, and asked the student who his mentor was. The hero replied, "Master, why are you suddenly trying to seem so decent?" The young man waved a finger at the man, not intending to speak aloud. When the teacher came closer, Xiao whispered in his ear, "Dragon Lord." A little later, Zhang Jibai was already lying in the infirmary and pondering over what had happened. The boss was thinking back to that scumbag who had defeated him. That young man seemed painfully familiar to him, but he couldn't remember. The man in the yellow shirt standing in Jibai's room was looking at Xiaofei's picture. The next moment, he exclaimed, "How can they be so similar?" Zhang called the man his second brother and asked how he knew the young man. The man replied that he could say that he did. But this guy shouldn't have survived. Had the cruel Dragon Lord shown mercy? Former manager Xiao asked his brother what topics would be on the chemistry exam. Jibai replied that they would be taking the exam on the topic of making and inventing poisons. Zhang Jiqian smiled fearfully and said, "That'll be something for me to do." Meanwhile, in the din of the automobile junkyard, loud sounds were heard time after time. It was He Xin practicing the palm of forged steel practice. Over time, the system reported that the technique had been practiced. It turned out that the hero wasn't just destroying old autocomas, he was making money from it. The young man informed his boss that all the written-off cars were pressed off, and even reported that he had already transferred the money to his phone. This person, in order to save money, did not purchase an auto-recycling baler. This is a great opportunity to both practice and make money. The next day, the young man received another message from the system. Please finish practicing hundredfold steel hardening as soon as possible. The hero pondered where he knew someone to fight with at this late hour. Suddenly, the guy was called out, asking, "Are you He Xin?" He replied that the man had made a mistake, and his name was Yin Jian. The stranger was wearing a black suit, his eyes hidden under dark glasses. It was Zhang Jixuan, a 9th level of the spirit calling realm. He said, "Don't pretend, you are He Xin. Young Master Zhang asked me to teach you a lesson." Hearing this, Xiao didn't look scared at all. He came closer and replied with a smile, "You should have said so right away." "I already thought they came to collect the debt." Ji Xuan thought confusedly, "My cultivation level is much higher, but why isn't he afraid of me at all? Judging from my spirit perception, he's only just entered the spirit summoning realm at best. Is this guy really hiding his true level? But a final year student isn't capable of such a thing." Deciding that the young man was deceiving him, he attacked first. The hero didn't have time to dodge, and was already lying on the ground in the next instant. The mercenary was satisfied. He had only confirmed his assumption that this brat was actually a weakling. Zixuan decided not to let the victim recover, but just a moment later, he saw a red glint in the young man's eyes. The one was smiling and encouraging his opponent to exert more strength. He Xin rose to his feet. He was able to continue this fight. The opponent attacked the hero again and again, preventing him from recovering. His blood splattered all around him. The mercenary couldn't understand what the hell was going on here. He was frightened by the creepy expression on the guy's face. Zhang decided that he had had enough. It was time to call it a day, and activated his magic. He used a technique called instant kill in 3 strikes. The last blow from this combination, which hit the hero's solar plexus, threw him far back. The young man slammed his back into the rock at an incredible speed, crushing the rock with it. But when the dust cleared, the mercenary saw that the student was still alive. Zhang condescendingly muttered, "The current high school students are completely hopeless, weak, and still trying to appear strong." But suddenly the man stopped talking at half a word. He saw that the boy's wounds were healing at an incredible rate. Even a healer, at the level of a spirit summoning realm, couldn't do that. The mercenary decided that before this high school student had time to recover fully, he should strike one last blow. Zhang struck Xiaofei with the edge of his palm right at his neck. At this moment, the hero received a message from the system that his hundredfold steel tempering practice was finally complete. Now, the young man could finally respond to his beatings with dignity. In the next instant, an energy core appeared in his palm. He once again used the Black Thunder Hell Palm. He Xin attacked his attacker with lightning speed, hitting him directly in the face. But the mercenary managed to intercept the entry-level spell in time. He was indeed a strong opponent, but those words of his only amused the guy. He was enveloped by yellow energy that looked like electrical discharges. It was his turn to use 2 techniques, using them one after the other. Forged steel palm, tempered steel. This double combo was so powerful that the mercenary was thrown far away from this clearing. The man landed on his 5th point, but remained conscious. Zhang felt that most of the meridians in his body had been severed. Some high school student at the elementary level of the spirit summoning realm had forced him to use ki to heal. He promised to recover and beat the guy to death. Suddenly, the man's gaze slanted somewhere to the side. He saw a ball of lightning in his hand and screamed in terror. The mercenary began to jerk his arm, trying to drop the core. After a moment, he realized that it wasn't working and he was truly terrified. Another moment, and there was a massive explosion that destroyed everything in its radius. The only thing left of Jang was his goggles, which fell at Hei Shin's feet. The hero received a message. The enemy has been destroyed. The magic artifact, Dynamic Vision Goggles, has been obtained. They are capable of improving the wearer's dynamic vision, making it easier to distinguish fast-moving objects. The young man picked up the trophy and put it on his face. The next day, Heishin was already ranked 18th in the school's rankings. Zhang Jibai could barely contain his own rage, for this upstart was climbing up the rankings too fast. The boss couldn't believe that this kid was able to finish off the mercenary he had sent. Meanwhile, a girl approached the hero. She said that the rookie's results were growing too fast. Could he share his secret? In exchange for the information, she offered 5 Pei-yuan pills. Other classmates noticed this. It didn't take long for gossip to spread. This mayor is taking advantage of a guy's lack of knowledge, trying to trade such a secret for some ordinary pills. The day of the third test had arrived. This time the students' knowledge of chemistry would be tested. Today is the chemistry test. You will demonstrate your skills in making and finding poisons. In the future, when you get into dangerous workplaces, you can't avoid sneaky blows from co-workers, subordinates, supervisors, and competitors. Zhan Qingyan, a chemistry teacher, told me. If you don't want to die in the workplace in the future, you have to give your best in the exam. Do you understand? The woman sternly inquired. She told me that everyone would receive several samples. By the end of the exam, you have to choose the one that is poisonous. All the others, the non-poisonous ones, must be eaten. The grade for this exam will be based on speed and accuracy of identification. If any of the students can name the poison, they will get extra points. Zhang Jibai grinned evilly as he glanced towards his opponent. His samples had already been handled by the people his second brother had found. He wouldn't live to see the dangerous work, but die right here and now. With so many things stinking together, one wouldn't even dream of finding poison by smell. On the plate were such foods: duji, stinky tofu, durian, and figs. And if you want to check in other ways, our poison has also undergone multiple levels of disguise. The poison masters from my clan don't eat their bread for nothing. As for you, even that chemistry teacher can hardly detect anything. Jibai mentally gloated. Meanwhile, the green-haired and classmate began sniffing his samples. He was finally in the element he possessed. Each of the students tried their own way to detect the poison. Fatty Wu tremblingly dripped something on his food. A dark-haired classmate applied her golden key to search for the poison. The chemistry teacher walked between the tables. She noted Yun Shu, the dark-haired student who was incredible at finding poisons as always. The woman turned her attention to Hei Shin. She thought that this disciple was still sitting like a pillar of salt, while the others had already started to show off their own talents. Meanwhile, Zhang continued to gloat, for he thought that the newcomer didn't understand what to choose. Still, whatever he ate would be the end of him. At the same time, someone was fishing on the heavenly island. The dragon lady thought that ever since she became a goddess, everything had become somehow uninteresting. The only entertainment was fishing. Suddenly, red tears started flowing out of the beauty's eyes. 5 minutes before, Xiaofei had deliberately started throwing in all the poisonous specimens indiscriminately. Zhang Qingyan was stunned by what she saw. Has this guy gone crazy? Doesn't he realize that he could die from this? The woman thought that she had fortunately foreseen this situation and strictly calculated the dosage. It was unlikely that the guy would die from it, but he could expect a severe diarrhea. Zhang Jibai did not take his eyes off his enemy. He was satisfied with what he saw. His men had poisoned all the food. This would be enough to kill Hei Shin at least 5 times. The chemistry teacher saw the signs of severe poisoning on the guy's face. The hero fell to the ground. He started to have a seizure. Qingyan rushed to him. She called out to the young man, but he did not react. Leaning over the newcomer, the teacher asked as if to herself if he was dead. From all corners of the classroom were heard phrases. Dead? Not again. Our school will be all over the papers tomorrow. Students who die suddenly in their senior year is a pretty common case. Great! I was 19th, right below this new kid. Now I can get my ranking up. Meanwhile, the teacher was thinking, oh crap. This will probably affect my promotion grade. And who had the nerve to mess up the exam? Is it really that damn gym teacher? He's competing with Zhang Qingyan for the title in this round. He definitely suspects something. The woman was so immersed in her own thoughts that she didn't even hear the hero who had already recovered call out to her. When the woman's gaze finally stopped on Hei Xin, who had already managed to sit on the floor and looked pretty good, she was stunned and scared at the same time, even bounced away from the guy far away. The chemistry teacher was confused, thinking that this was the first time in her career she'd ever seen something like this. Simulated death or rebirth, but this student's spell fooled even her. The young man rose to his feet and said that all 5 food items had been poisoned, including the gut-spreading powder. The hero added that the last one was the poison that killed the heir. Meanwhile, Zhang Jibai couldn't believe his own eyes. This miraculous resurrection simply could not have happened. To be absolutely certain of this upstart's death, he even found a condensation poison expert from his sect. The boss had time to scrutinize this guy's background. He's a nobody, absolutely pure. But in that case, how could the nameless nobody survive the condensation poison expert's poison? That same evening in her lab, the chemistry teacher decided to look into the case that had stunned her in the exam today. The woman was conducting a thorough analysis of some dark-colored liquid using her mana. Finally, she managed to analyze a blood sample of the newcomer. All of his answers to the queries were correct. Qing Yang concluded that it was impossible to come up with such a thing without a cerebral gym teacher. These poisons were created by a true master from the condensation field. After all, it took even her half an hour to analyze this. Meanwhile, Hei Xin himself went to the bookstore after his incredible resurrection. Standing at the shelf, he thought that he had never even guessed the existence of such a way of communication before. It was at this very moment that Dragon-sama contacted the guy. She said it was strange. After all, it was a forbidden technique of his kind and he didn't even know how to use it, some kind of stupidity. The young man fiddled with his own hand, and the Celestial explained that their health charts were now merged, and they could use it to communicate in emergencies. The hero marveled at his own hand and said that such encrypted communication hurt. The guy was surprised that immortals didn't have a better way to communicate with mortals. The dragon in the guise of a beauty who was lounging in the bathtub at the time replied, "Do you really think that being a god is freedom? To humans, we are walking strategic weapons. Every move is being monitored. Immortal Palace. I've already gone down once without permission. If I accidentally come into contact with humans and the Immortal Palace finds out about it, they'll come after me." Hei Xin scribbled a reply on his palm. "Then can you at least tell me where to find high-grade treasures?" The goddess replied that she had already shared what she could. It was embedded in the skill advance. She advised the hero to simply follow the instructions. Immersed in this strange conversation, the young man forgot that he was in a bookstore, and from his wounded palm a pool of blood was dripping on the floor. Suddenly his attention was distracted by footsteps, and just a second later he felt someone's surprised gaze on him. An angry girl, judging by her appearance a store employee, spoke up. "I know there's a lot of pressure on high school students these days, but injuring yourself in a bookstore? Are you serious? Now I have to clean up a pool of blood behind you?" The young man politely apologized, promising that he would clean it up himself. He changed the subject, inquiring about some books. The hero said he was in his senior year and wanted to go to university to study condensation. He was interested in good textbooks for preparation. The saleswoman was pleased and replied that the entrance exams were still almost a year away. It was strange to her that this guy was preparing so far in advance. Hei Xin wanted to know if the condensation area was really so hard. The girl waved her hands and asked, "What are you, a senior student? You seem to lack common sense. If you can reach condensation during the college entrance exam, you're almost guaranteed admission, and if you reach it faster, you can apply for a direct recommendation." She reached out for the red-covered book and muttered to herself that today's kids have very high ambitions. These are the 3 most popular books. If you can fully understand them, that's at least a good thing, added the saleswoman. The hero chose one of the blue-bound books and carried it to the cash register. He told the cashier that he would take this particular tome. It was not one of the books the saleswoman had recommended. She sighed and said, "You're just not going to take advice? Suit yourself." Only after paying and walking a few steps away from the cash register did Xiao start flipping through the pages quickly. The saleswoman thought, "Such this complicated book," and he immediately flips to the last page. This is not high standards, but reverse logic. The young man is hopeless. Meanwhile, the hero entered the elevator. He read aloud. Entering the condensation realm requires the full development of this or body to the 10th level, as well as the aid of a condensation saw. This process can cause the spiritual energy in your body to go crazy, resulting in serious injuries. Therefore, you need a lot of high-quality healing and base-stabilizing medicines. It's expensive and risky. You can still die from this process. From what he read, the hero realized that he just needed to prepare a condensation pill. That same evening, there were shouting sounds in the Jang family's carefully guarded manor. Leaning back on the back of the sofa, Jibai questioned the poison master. How did a master like you fail to kill a senior student? The man fell to his knees and begged the young man to calm down. He suggested that something must have gone wrong. The poison master begged for another chance. He promised to kill the boy permanently this time. That rascal is now ranked 10th in the rankings. I won't let him succeed so easily. I'll give you one more week. If Hei Shin escapes death this time too, you'll be dead, the local boss angrily exclaimed. Suddenly, Jibai heard some strange sound coming from the ceiling of his house. He lifted his head up. Through a huge hole, a hero in his own right burst into the room, his eyes burning red and holding a long sword. One of the guards of the Jang family estate was scrutinizing the perimeter through the tree crowns. Suddenly, his gaze locked onto a dark silhouette that was lying on the ground a little farther away from the house. Turning on his radio, the guard managed to shout that someone had broken into the estate. But before he could speak, the man received a strong blow from behind in the neck area. The guard lost consciousness from the blow, and the dark figure of a stranger jumped onto the balcony of the house. The three men lay motionless, the hero pausing for a moment, surveying the result of his attack. Approaching the window of the room where the conversation was taking place, Shin just heard this sentence from Zhang. I give you 1 week. If the newcomer survives this time too, you'll lose your head. The hero decided that he had had enough. He activated the red dragon mana in his left hand. The young man decided to attack from the ceiling. The impact was so strong that it pierced not only the roof but also the floor of the 3rd floor. These were the sounds that Jibai heard. And the next moment, raising his head up, the boss saw his nemesis with a weapon and in his own house. Hei Shin was not going to waste precious time on idle chatter, and took advantage of the surprise to stab his classmate with his sword. The blow struck his left shoulder, nailing the bastard to the couch. Junior Jang looked really frightened. He had not expected anything like this from the newcomer, especially since his family's estate was always heavily guarded. But the young man quickly recovered and activated his own chi by placing the palm of his right hand in front of him. Shin managed to react in time and blocked his opponent's energy strike, but he had to take a few steps back and pull his sword out of his body. Concentrating, he counterattacked powerfully, throwing his enemy backwards. Crashing through the wall of a neighboring room with his back, Jibai fell, gutting everything around him. The hero sensed the danger in time thanks to his keen instincts. He managed to repel everything that flew in his direction with his sword. The next moment he was attacked by the poison master, who was also in the room at the time of the attack. The man was masterfully wielding a dagger, its sharp blade stopping a millimeter away from Hen Shin's eye. He dodged at the last moment and was only frightened by a scratch on his temple. With a single blow from the hero, the poison master flew backwards, but landed on his feet instead of falling. Having regained his balance, the man asked, Are you the graduate who didn't die from my poison? I was going to look for you, and you came into my hands all by yourself. The poison at the tip of my weapon is far more dangerous than what you might encounter in the exam room. I used an ancient recipe this time. Its toxicity is quite different, so just expect sudden death, the master said with menace in his voice. The scratch could still be seen on the hero's face. A thin trickle of blood dripped from it. Hei Shin's gaze, which had no hint of fear in it, made the man nervous. At this moment, Zhang Jr.'s figure appeared in the tunnel that was formed in the wall, his right hand clasping the wound on his shoulder. The boss had no sooner taken a few steps than a sword point was presented to his neck. Hei Shin moved with lightning speed. He wanted to finish what he started. Another moment and the sword would have pierced through Jibai's head. But he managed to dodge at the last moment and the point stabbed into the stone. The hero easily drew his sword and attacked his classmate again, causing him to stagger backwards. While stepping on his friend, the young man had to keep an eye on the poison master. He was loyal to the Jang family, but he wasn't going to stand aside. He released his poison blades towards the intruder again and again. Xiao had never encountered such a weapon before, but his reactions never failed him. The poison master shouted angrily, "How dare you ignore me?" He tried to shift his attention to himself to give Junior Jang a chance to escape. Given the power of my poison, it should have died, but then why is he still standing firmly on his feet? The man couldn't understand such a phenomenon. In the next moment, he told young Master Jang to flee, while he himself covered the guy with a veil of poison needles. The boss decided to heed the advice, and without wasting any time, he quickly dashed into the hole in the wall. In a few seconds, Jibai found himself outside, right in the air, high above the ground. The poison master shouted, "I don't have time to play, let me show you the true horror of condensation." The needles that stuck into the wall suddenly began to release a poisonous emerald smoke that quickly filled the entire room. The hero immediately determined that this poisonous mist was more intense than the previous needles that were simply saturated with toxins. He covered his nose with his hand, but it didn't help. The poison from the fog settled on his skin and instantly took effect. The boy couldn't stand it for a minute. He fell to the ground, he was bleeding internally. The poison master was pleased with the result of his work. He took a few steps forward to check the condition of his victim. "Did you really think you were immune to any poison? In fact, you couldn't withstand my killing blow," the man exclaimed happily. But he rejoiced too soon, for he didn't know who he was really dealing with. The hero could recover in seconds, so it only took a moment before he was ready to fight again. Taking advantage of the moment of surprise, he struck a fatal blow with his sword on the master's chest. Resting his hand on the floor, Heishin rose to his feet. His business here was not yet finished. From the moment he used the clay avatar technique to deflect the damage, the young man would no longer be covered in blood every time something happened, but blowing up both of them at once. "It seems like he's really encountered something difficult," thought Dragon Lady, who saw the destroyed avatars. She applied her divine chi to restore these artifacts. They would be of use to her ward for many more times. Activating a portal of sorts, she saw with interest what was currently happening on Earth. It was the moment when Shin attacked the Poison Master. The severely injured man exclaimed, "A condensation realm cultivator like me was actually killed by someone from the spirit attraction realm." The master sank helplessly to the floor, his clothes profusely soaked in blood. The hero walked closer and checked the man. He was absent. The guy decided to waste no time and look at the bag. Even if it was empty, the bag itself could be sold for money. Meanwhile, Zhang Zhibai managed to run out to the road. Only there did he allow himself to stop and catch his breath. At this moment, the boss realized that he had forgotten his phone. Now he would have to catch an auto to call for backup. "Damn student, how dare he take revenge on a descendant of the Jiang family? Once I gather the mercenaries, not only will I kill you, I will also destroy your family," the bastard promised. But Heishin was not going to give him such an opportunity. Descending as if from a cliff, he exclaimed, "Who are you going to kill?" Jibai froze in horror upon hearing his enemy's voice. He didn't even have time to straighten his back. It seemed like just a moment more, and his head would roll down the road. Then the hero's revenge would be over. But not to die where the strength was found, he put his arm in front of him, defending himself from the enemy's sword with a purified steel technique. In this way, he injured his arm, but his head remained in place. Before Zhang Jr. could even recover from the first attack, a fireball appeared in front of his face. The next instant, the silence of the night was cut through by the loud sound of an explosion. Jibai was still alive, but the blast wave had thrown him off the road and into a crevice. After flying a good 100 meters, he fell to the ground. Heishin wasn't going to stop there, and jumped down after his enemy. The third young master of the Jiang family put his hand out in front of him, begging for forgiveness and promising anything if his classmate kept him alive. But the hero had no pity for scum. He could be cruel at times like this. One swing of his sword and Jibai's head bounced on the ground, separated from his body. If the Dragon Lord hadn't taken all the damage, you would have killed him several times already. Being on the brink of death, you continue to brag about your origin. Heishin spoke calmly. After setting the body of his enemy on fire, the young man added, "Although I burned your body and removed all the evidence, the Zhang family will definitely link your demise to me. Besides, I'm still using your family's patented technique. It's unlikely to avoid conflicts with them in the future." The hero decided that this revenge was not in vain. Although he quickly left the manor, he managed to grab some valuable items. What were the 3 condensation pills worth? Zhang Sr. had to sacrifice to a dragon to obtain one. The guy had come to the conclusion that the relationship between the disciples of the major sects was really complicated. By the time he managed to grab some gold, silver, treasures, talismans, all of which could be sold profitably later. The system immediately paid attention to the keyword sale and proposed his sales system. From the moment I learned how to get skills up front, these system-influencing windows began to appear. It must have been invented by a stinking dragon. Now it looks even crazier, like big e-commerce platforms, Han Xin thought irritably. The next moment, the hero noticed something that made him go home and clean his browsing history as quickly as possible. The system offered him to spin the Wheel of Fortune, promising good winnings. The guy couldn't resist the temptation and took advantage of the sales section. Dynamic monocle, horizontal blade, poison lotus, gold bars, and other trophies were sold for 154,178 yuan, which were promptly credited to the hero's account. And the very next moment, the system offered him the heaven-opening blade for 1 million yuan. The hero exclaimed, "What the hell? I sold everything for a little over $1 million, and you want to get that money for one premium blade?" I remember an artifact of similar quality out in the open selling for much cheaper. This is a robbery in broad daylight. The young man decided to spin the drum some more. It wasn't that he couldn't afford it. It just wasn't worth that kind of money. Next, the system offered pants for 50,000 yuan. These clothes were very durable, and instead of pockets, they had space pouches that could hold many items. The guy decided that this item was really useful. Next item, a premium quality boiling blood blade for 600,000 yuan. The more blood its owner loses, the stronger the attacks become. Good quality contact lenses for 500,000 yuan improve dynamic vision by 50%, help you see fast-moving objects better. A 100,000 yuan impact protection t-shirt can be stronger than a person's body. No need to worry about the clothes tearing during a fight. Boots for 200,000 yen that have incredible grip on the sole. They can literally stick to the ground, the effect depending on the cultivation level of the wearer. After his successful shopping spree, the hero had 4,718 yuan left in his account. Tears of disappointment were streaming down his face because money did not come to him easily. Such a guy's reaction to a significant expense only amused the Dragon Lord. She exclaimed, addressing herself, "I still won't let you die easily for putting the blood curse on me." Maybe suddenly the lady realized that she was not alone on her island. She exclaimed confusedly, "My Majesty the Dragon King!" A black cat sat next to the woman. He said in human language, "It seems we have found a way to break the curse of human blood." The Dragon King, in the guise of an ordinary cat, spread his front paws apart and activated the magic pentagram they were in the middle of. I checked. There's nothing special about this guy's bloodline. His descendants could only cast the blood curse on lower-level demonic beasts. They couldn't even withstand the damage it brought, so his descendants often died in low-level battles. That was why no sect had ever shown interest in his bloodline. He Xin has always been a nobody in the mortal world, the black cat told. The dragon lady didn't understand how the young man was able to cast the blood curse on her in such a case. She was the heavenly dragon queen, not some low-level beast. The Dragon King speculated. Perhaps it was because when you descended to the mortal realm, the Heavenly Emperor's limited spell deliberately lowered your cultivation to a very low level. In addition, the guy's strong desire to survive at that moment greatly increased the upper limit of his blood curse. But Hen Xin's curse still depended on his own development level. The development of the spiritual attraction realm could only spend a very small portion of the Dragon Lady's health scale. Once it runs out, the young man will still perish. After a moment, the black cat announced that everything was ready and asked the Dragon Lord to enter the center of the magical star. The woman without further ado went where she was commanded. At the same time, the enchantments worked. The lady wriggled in pain, for the procedure of breaking the curse was indeed unpleasant. The red thread of the curse that connected the goddess and the ordinary mortal became visible. It led directly to the dark windows of the hero's house. Han Xin was sleeping peacefully in his own bed, not even realizing what was happening right now. Meanwhile, a curse thread shrouded in red mana penetrated his chest. At the same instant the dragon lady appeared in the young man's room, she said, "Now this blood curse has taken a very tangible form." The goddess stretched her hand forward. It was as if it was burning with fire. She grasped the thread of the curse that came from her own chest and pulled hard. Suddenly there was a knock at the door of the room. Lady Dragon asked who it was. The woman was annoyed that it was now that she was being interrupted. A male voice came from behind the door. "I am the messenger. The heavenly minister invites you to an audience." The black cat next to her was surprised. "Isn't there a message talisman? Why send a personal messenger?" The dragon in human form sensed that this visitor did not come with good intentions.